The other day, I watched a young woman in a quiet corner of a Tokyo cafe. She had a small acrylic stand of a purple-haired anime character propped up against her latte. She wasn't just glancing at it, she was celebrating. It was his birthday, and she'd bought a tiny slice of strawberry shortcake specifically for the plastic figure. She took a photo, her face glowing with a genuine soft radiance you'd expect from someone on a high-stakes first date. To any passerby, it looked like a classic case of escapism, someone who had checked out of reality to live in a plastic fantasy. But then her phone buzzed with a notification from a dating app. I watched her expression shift instantly. That warmth vanished, replaced by a weary, guarded tension. She stared at the screen for a second, sighed, and then flipped the phone face down without replying. It wasn't that she lacked the opportunity for a real-life connection, or that she was socially awkward. It was something far more calculated. In Japan, they call what she was doing Oshikatsu. On the surface, it looks like a one-sided obsession with a pop idol or a fictional character. Most people see the light-up wands and the thousands of dollars spent on merchandise and assume it's a sign of weakness, a retreat for those who can't handle the real world. But when you look closer at that subtle shift in her face, you realize the reality is actually the opposite. What if she isn't running away from romance because she's afraid of it? What if she's participating in Oshikatsu because the real world has become so emotionally unforgiving that she needed to build an entirely different infrastructure just to keep her heart from going cold? Today, we're exploring why Japan is moving toward a many-to-one emotional model, and how, in an age where showing too much emotion to a real partner is labeled as heavy or dependent, these one-sided devotions might actually be the only thing keeping the capacity for love alive. Okay, so to really understand what's happening here, this huge social shift, we have to start with the language. The word itself, Oshikatsu, it really unlocks the whole dynamic, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. This isn't just fandom, as we might casually think of it.
Yeah.
The word itself it's a portmanteau, and a very descriptive one.
Right.
You take Oshi, which is sort of shorthand for someone or something one supports, your favorite, basically.
Well, yeah.
Exactly. And you combine it with Katsu, which just means activity. So you're literally describing the activity of supporting your favorite thing. It's an action. It's an effort.
It's not passive.
Not at all. And it's a defined activity that really gained a huge amount of momentum during the pandemic. People were isolated. They needed these stable, safe, emotional outlets. This gave them a framework.
And the range of what counts as an Oshi it's kind of staggering. I think most of us immediately picture, J-pop idols, K-pop groups, maybe stage actors.
The human performers.
Yeah. Or maybe YouTubers now, VTubers, these virtual avatars. Those are huge categories.
They are, but the real definition is so much broader, and that breadth is, I think, a really crucial point. It tells you that the structure of the activity is more important than the specific thing you're devoted to.
So what else are we talking about?
Oh, anything. We have tons of documentation of Oshi status being given to fictional characters from anime, manga, video games.
Yeah.
That's a massive one. But we've also seen examples where the Oshi is a specific animal.
Like at a zoo.
Yeah, or even a favorite brand of food. I've even seen cases where it's a specific train or a piece of color structure. The definition is so intentionally inclusive, and that maximizes who can participate.
That makes sense. It's about formalizing that feeling of devotion, no matter where it's directed. But it's not just about, liking something. There's a threshold, right?
Yeah.
When does someone go from being a casual fan to actually practicing Oshikatsu?
The real defining line is active and crucially repeated engagement. It's a commitment of your resources, your time, your energy, and definitely your money. That goes way beyond just, buying a ticket to a movie.
It's a practice.
It's a practice. It's buying the merchandise. It's attending every single event you can, even the online ones. And it's performing these very personal rituals, just like the birthday party you saw in the cafe. Even if you're the only one there, you're actively participating.
That active investment is really the core of it. You're taking ownership of your role as a supporter. There was this one story of a 49-year-old fan of a K-pop group, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said she can't go back to life without it.
Wow.
And her activities aren't just watching concerts. She spends hours on fan websites. She buys all the latest merch. She even organized a small birthday party for one of the members and made a custom macaron for him.
See, that's it right there. The depth of that commitment is absolutely real. But the structure of that commitment, that's what makes it so different from, say, romantic love.
And that's the central point we have to unpack, because I think a lot of people, especially outside Japan, they just see this and think, oh, it's a substitute for dating.
It's a common mistake. but structurally, they're polar opposites. And that's completely intentional.
Okay, so break that down. One-to-one versus many-to-one.
Right. Romantic love, at its core, is a high-risk, one-to-one connection. It's demanding, it requires mutual exchange, equal emotional labor, exclusivity.
Shared plans, a future.
Exactly. It's a reciprocal bond. Oshikatsu is designed to be the opposite. It's fundamentally many-to-one. You have this huge fan base, the many, all directing their energy, their affection, their resources towards this one single object of support, the Oshi.
And that structure is powerful because of what it's missing.
Precisely. It's revolutionary because of what it intentionally lacks. The emotional investment is real, that's not in question. The feelings of pride, devotion, affection, they are genuine, but the relationship itself is, by definition, non-relational and asymmetrical.
So there's no expectation that the Oshi will ever know your name.
None. There is no expectation of mutual recognition, no demand for personal validation, no request for exclusivity, and absolutely no promise of a shared future. The fan knows they're one of thousands, maybe millions.
And by taking all of that off the table, by removing the high stakes and the constant negotiation of a real relationship, you get something incredibly stable.
That is the key, stability. You can't be personally rejected by an anime character. An idol isn't going to ghost you the way a match from a dating app will. The contract is very simple, and it's unbreakable. The Oshi will be dedicated to their craft acting, singing, just existing in their story, and the fan promises to support that.
And that stability, that predictability translates into some pretty profound psychological benefit.
It really does. All the research shows that fans find this incredibly fulfilling. They see it as a necessary form of emotional regulation, mental self-care. It's a way to relieve stress because you can express all this affection without the fear of vulnerability that comes with a real relationship.
It also gives you an identity, a community. This is a huge shift from older stereotypes, right? The whole otaku image.
A massive shift. For decades, being a devoted fan, especially of anime or manga, carried this negative stereotype of being an otaku socially awkward, isolated. Oshikatsu has a much more positive, socially accepted view. People build communities around it. You see them listing their Oshi in their social media bios. It's a badge of honor.
It's a valid social identifier now, not something to hide. And that brings us to the story of Akiko, the 28-year-old office worker. Her story just perfectly illustrates the strategic retreat from one system to another.
Akiko's experience is so telling. She was deep in the world of kankatsu, the formal matchmaking, the dating scene in Japan. She spent 3 years doing it.
And she described it as, what, a job interview?
An exhausting, high-stakes job interview every single weekend. She was constantly performing, trying to fit some abstract ideal, terrified of making one wrong move and getting instantly ghosted.
Just think about the emotional burnout from that. It's so transactional. You're investing real hope, real energy, and the return is just negative. It leaves you feeling fragile and disposable.
Exactly. The emotional cost was just too high, and the risk of that sudden, sharp rejection was constant. So she quit. She retreated from that whole emotionally unforgiving environment.
And redirected all of that energy into supporting a young stage actor.
All of it.
So
she goes to his plays, she's in his fan club, she buys his photos, and she does it with her eyes wide open. She knows he has no idea who she is, and she doesn't expect him to.
The relief she found wasn't just about escape, was it? It was about predictability.
That's the core of it. The stage actor is predictably present. He's dedicated to his craft. He will be on that stage every night. He won't disappear. He won't ghost her. She traded that volatile, high-risk intimacy for predictable, non-reciprocal devotion.
So this is how Oshikatsu evolves from a subculture into what you'd call an essential emotional infrastructure.
Yes. It becomes a vital psychological safety net. It actively stabilizes your heart against the constant, sudden personal rejection you find in this transactional social market. The main takeaway here is that Akiko isn't giving up on love. She's managing her emotional risk. She's preserving her ability to feel devotion in a safe, controlled environment.
And once you have millions of people doing this, preserving and nurturing this capacity for devotion, it inevitably becomes a massive economic force. Which brings us to the next piece of this. Oceanomics.
This is where it stops being a niche hobby and becomes something that governments and major corporations are paying very close attention to.
You really can't ignore the scale of this economy. I mean, the Japanese government is facing this double pressure of a declining population and needing to kickstart the economy after the pandemic and inflation, and they are actively looking at the fan economy as a way to get people spending again.
And they're right to. The numbers are staggering. Conservatively, the fan economy in Japan is estimated around 3.5 trillion yen annually.
3.5 trillion. Let's put that in perspective for you. That's about 2.1% of Japan's total annual retail sales.
It's a huge slice of the pie. A huge amount of consumer spending that is dedicated purely to this activity of emotional support.
And how many people are we talking about?
The estimates are around 14 million people. That's about 11% of the entire population actively engaged in Oshikatsu. And these aren't casual participants, they're dedicated spenders.
Right. The data on spending habits is pretty wild. The average fan spends something like 250,000 yen a year on their Oshi.
Roughly, yes. And when you look at the demographics, it's Gen Z and millennials who are the most proactive spenders. Analysts at places like Nomura Securities have pointed out that this younger generation, they are expecting huge wage increases in the future, so this kind of spending is expected to be a stable driving force for consumption for years to come.
But the motivation here isn't just buying stuff. When you talk to the fans, they frame it very differently. It's not consumerism, it's an investment in their own sanity.
It's a subscription to sanity. That's the key shift in perspective. And this is where we can talk about Hiroshi, the IT engineer. His story perfectly lays out how this economy is filling these deep emotional voids that traditional life paths used to fill.
So he budgets for it, right? Like it's a utility bill?
Meticulously.
Yeah.
His Oshi expenses, merchandise, super chats during live streams, concert tickets, it's a fixed line item in his monthly budget, like rent or insurance. He spends 50,000 yen a month on a virtual YouTuber.
A VTuber.
Yes. And he literally called it his subscription to sanity. His reasoning was so insightful. He said his corporate job, which is supposed to give him a sense of purpose and progress, is just transactional. It's empty.
So the emotional investment he makes in his Oshi's career, watching them grow, that fills the void.
It fills that gaping void. It's almost a little tragic. The fan economy is acting as his primary healthcare provider. It's monetizing a way to feel connected and purposeful because the traditional structures, like a career, aren't providing that anymore.
And beyond just the sheer size of the market, the economics of this also reveals some really interesting things about gender dynamics. There's a sort of reversal of traditional roles happening here.
A very striking reversal. If you think about the traditional gender ideology, especially in Japanese society, the man is expected to be the breadwinner, the financial provider. But inside the Oshikatsu world, you frequently see women, including many older women, financially supporting younger male idols and celebrities. And it's not a small niche. A survey from this year showed that 46% of women in their 50s had a favorite idol they actively spent money on.
46%, that's nearly half.
It is. And this act of financial support by middle-aged and older women for younger men, it directly challenges those old rigid gender norms about who holds the financial power in a relationship. It's an active, public, financial commitment to a passion that's entirely their own, separate from their role as a wife or mother.
And that commitment shows up in some very specific, very visible, and often very expensive ways.
Absolutely. Fans will attend multiple shows. They'll bulk buy CDs to get lottery tickets for events. They collect memorabilia like those acrylic stands. And then there's the whole practice of pilgrimages.
Which is basically traveling to sacred sites.
Exactly. Locations from a music video, a place the Oshi visited, a specific concept cafe. We saw one fan who paid just to sit at the exact same cafe table her favorite idol sat at. She set up all her own acrylic stands on the table, took a photo. It's a ritual. It transforms a normal place into a site of personal meaning.
But the most iconic, the most public display of this has to be the Ida bag.
Oh, for sure. The Ida bag. For anyone who doesn't know, Ida means painful. So it's a painful bag. And it's a handbag that is just completely covered in merchandise of your Oshi.
Hundreds of pinback buttons, keychains, plushies, everything, all color-coded to the Oshi's signature color.
And creating one is not cheap. With limited edition merch, a really high-quality Ida bag can be an investment of thousands of dollars. It's a walking billboard for your devotion, a public declaration of your identity and your financial commitment.
Of course, with this much money and this much intense emotion involved, we have to talk about the dark side. There are some very significant criticisms leveled against this whole practice.
And we absolutely have to address them. From a psychiatric viewpoint, there is scrutiny. Some practitioners do see it as a form of relationship addiction, a non-substance behavioral addiction, with risks that are comparable to gambling or alcohol, especially if it leads to financial ruin or neglecting your actual responsibilities.
And that financial pressure is very real. I saw a survey where up to 50% of fans in their 20s said they felt that Oshikatsu was a financial burden.
It is. Some people are spending up to half of their disposable income on this, particularly fans of underground male idols or employees at some of these concept cafes and host clubs.
Which is where the exploitation critique comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those businesses, the concept cafes and host clubs, they can actively use the Oshikatsu framework against the customer. They leverage that desire for a supportive, predictable connection to pressure people into spending huge amounts on photos, on merch, on designated slots of conversation time.
So they're mimicking the structure to get you to spend more. They make you feel like you're personally responsible for the success of your favorite host or cafe worker.
It blurs the line between a transactional service and genuine support. But, and this is a really important counterpoint, when you talk to the fans themselves, they see it differently.
They know it's a transaction.
They know the market is transactional. But for them, the ultimate goal is not to win the love of the Oshi. It's not about achieving a real reciprocal relationship.
Motivation is internal.
It's completely internalized. They're doing it for self-realization, for self-identity. The reward is the feeling they get from the act of supporting, the devotion itself, the community they build around that identity. It's a system designed to regulate the self, even if the tools happen to be commercial products.
Which brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why is this massive commercial non-reciprocal infrastructure so necessary right now? Why are 14 million people spending 3.5 trillion yen to feel emotionally stable?
And the answer, I think, lies in the incredibly fragile nature of one-to-one relationships in Japan, especially when real emotional vulnerability gets involved.
It's an emotional, unforgiving social landscape, and the primary rule governing that landscape is a concept called meiwaku wo kakenai.
Do not cause inconvenience or trouble to others. And this isn't just a polite suggestion, it's a fundamental social obligation.
And that one rule just dramatically raises the emotional cost of any close relationship, because if expressing your genuine need, your sincere feelings, your vulnerability, if that can be seen as an imposition, as meiwaku,
then you have to constantly police your own emotional output. If your partner perceives your anxiety or your depression, or even just your simple need for support as trouble, the entire relationship becomes unstable.
This leads to this culture of conflict avoidance and really indirect communication. The biggest example being reading the air.
Right. The idea that you have to correctly interpret the atmosphere, the unspoken emotions, the real meaning, the han that's hidden behind the polite public words, the teime.
It's basically mind reading.
It is. And if you can't do it, communication completely breaks down. It makes expressing direct, sincere emotion incredibly high risk because everything is shrouded in ambiguity.
There's that example, the polite decline.
If someone offers you something, like more food, the polite thing to do is to decline it first, even if you really want it. This forces the host to insist maybe 2 or 3 times just to confirm what you actually mean.
It's a little conversational dance.
It is, and it shows you the distance between what's said and what's meant. Now imagine applying that level of complexity to dating, where clear communication about feelings and needs is supposed to be the most important thing. You can see how it just becomes agonizing.
Even being generous can be a problem. Giving a gift that's too big can be seen as meiwaku.
Because it creates an imposition. The person who receives it feels this strong cultural obligation to give you something of equal value back. So your act of generosity immediately becomes a complex, burdensome transaction.
Right. We see it even in small things. Like if you have a minor accident, the apology gift is supposed to be kept cheap, like under 1,000 yen, so it doesn't create an obligation for the other person.
So basically, your vulnerability, your sincere needs, even your big expressions of affection, they all have to be carefully managed so you're not seen as a burden.
And when you take that cultural background and you drop it into the modern dating scene, the risk just gets amplified massively.
Tenfold. Communication around boundaries, consent, rejection. It all becomes extraordinarily stressful and just full of potential for misunderstanding.
This is where that controversial idea comes in, the no means try harder phenomenon in courtship.
It's a document dynamic, and it's rooted in that culture of indirectness. The idea is that a woman might offer a koken resistance, a polite taime no, to avoid seeming easy. This then puts the man in the position of having to ignore that no and push through to prove that he's serious.
Which is an incredibly dangerous dynamic.
Incredibly. For some men, that persistence is seen as a victory. But for women, the consequences are severe. Sociological studies show it contributes to this pervasive feeling of being unsafe, and it raises the risk of unwanted sexual contact because a direct no can't always be trusted.
So when clear, direct communication is that unreliable in an intimate setting, you can see why one-to-one romance becomes this emotional, unforgiving, high-stakes negotiation.
And that's why the retreat to Oshikatsu is such a calculated defensive move. People aren't running away because they can't love. They're retreating to a model that guarantees stability and non-judgment in a world that punishes emotional sincerity.
This is where the story of Yuki, the university student, really brings it all home for me. Her motivation just encapsulates this entire survival strategy. She's devoted to a fictional character from a sports anime.
Right. She organizes little birthday parties for him. She writes him these letters that she carefully crafts but never actually sends.
Her reason for doing it is so self-protective. She says she's doing it to keep her heart warm.
Exactly. She's actively protecting herself from becoming cynical, from becoming cold-hearted and detached, which is what the modern transactional world seems to demand from you.
So this isn't about avoiding intimacy at all. It's about maintaining the capacity for intimacy.
That's it. Oshikatsu becomes a kind of training ground for the soul. It lets you exercise your muscles of intimacy, your ability to feel deep devotion, to be sincere in a safe space, until maybe you can find a real-world place that's safe enough for it. It's a survival strategy.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Bring it all back to that woman in the cafe, choosing her little plastic figure over the dating app. It's clear that Oshikatsu is just profoundly misunderstood. This is not a sign of weakness. It's not some escapist retreat for people who are afraid of love.
Not at all. What it really is a calculated, highly functional strategy. It's used by people who still have this sincere capacity for devotion, but they recognize that the real-world infrastructure for emotional vulnerability it's deteriorated. It's become toxic.
People aren't running away from emotion. They're looking for a stable place where their emotions won't be used against them.
Right.
Where they won't be misinterpreted or just labeled a burden as meiwaku.
And the structural difference is what provides the solution. Because it's non-reciprocal, because it's non-relational and completely stable, the only promise is that the Oshi will keep existing and doing their thing. It allows these deep, genuine emotions to be expressed safely. You can regulate them without the constant fear of rejection or the exhausting mental gymnastics of indirect communication.
So in the end, Oshikatsu isn't an alternative to love. It's almost a prerequisite for it.
I think that's exactly right. By providing this safe harbor where devotion and sincerity can be practiced and nurtured, this many-to-one devotion to an Oshikatsu becomes the critical emotional infrastructure that keeps the human capacity for reciprocal love alive in a world that increasingly punishes the sincere heart.